friends, and welcome to another video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. 50 years and a bunch of weeks ago, NBC aired the second to the last episode of classic Star Trek. It was called All Our Yesterdays, and these are my honest opinions about it. And this is the end, my beautiful friend, the end. Almost. Sorry, I know I can't sing. This episode is a very special one for me. After way too many, let's say it politely, average and sub-average episodes in season 3, we finally get one episode which is really, and I mean really good. And it's almost the last episode. And for a while this actually was the last episode of Star Trek, because there was a 3 months long gap between this one and the real final episode. And in some countries this used to air as the last episode, because this one is so much better than the actual last episode. We don't see the Enterprise crew in this episode, only the 3 main characters, Kirk, Spock and McCoy. They are doing what a Star Trek crew is supposed to do, some actual exploration. The planet they beam down to is called Sarpedon, and their star Beta Niobe is going supernova in a few hours, which means the planet will be destroyed. Last time any Federation explorers were in this part of the universe, Sarpedon was heavily populated, but the inhabitants didn't have any space technology. But still, without any technology allowing them to evacuate the planet, they disappeared. Great start. Our 3 heroes materialize in a library, where they, to their surprise, meet the local librarian named Mr. Atos. They try to get some information from him, but he doesn't understand what they want from him. So they go to his colleague, only to find out that his colleague is Mr. Atos. Even he isn't able to answer their questions, so they go to the office, where they meet Mr. Atos. Great teaser, to be honest. This one is the real librarian, the other 2 are just his replicas. What does it mean? I have no clue. Are they clones, robots, androids, some holograms? No idea, and that's the first of my very short list of problems with this episode. He tells them that everybody went wherever they wanted to, and tries to find a disc which might be suitable for our 3 heroes, not understanding that they come from outer space. Kirk is viewing discs with some stock footage from older Paramount Pictures movies when he hears a woman screaming, so he jumps off his chair and runs through the gate behind him, only to find himself in what appears to be France in the Middle Ages. The thing is very simple. The gate is actually called the Atavachron, and I'm sorry for completely butchering the pronunciation of many of the things. And the Atavachron is basically a time machine. So the people of Sarpedon saved themselves by going to the past of their planet. So they don't have space travel, but they have time machine? Weird, but whatever. Kirk calls his friends, and Spock and McCoy run together through the same gate. But there is a little twist. McCoy was watching a disc with their Ice Age, which means they end up in a frozen land. Kirk meanwhile tries to save the screaming woman, and it's a drunk Dr. Crusher. No, really, this actress looks shockingly similar to Gates McFadden. I have no clue what her name is, she's even credited as Woman in the closing credits, so I'll call her Drunk Beverly. Drunk Beverly is being harassed by the 3 musketeers, so Kirk, the big gentleman, saves her, only after he realizes that she is actually a thief and the musketeers wanted to arrest her. When they return to arrest also him, he returns to the wall and starts to talk to his friends, to a huge shock to everybody there, because they think he's talking to ghosts. When he calls one of them Bones, they think he's a witch and knock him down. McCoy and Spock are meanwhile freezing, but they can't find the way back. this is my next problem with this story. Spock and McCoy are not able to find the gate back to the library, even when they are clearly standing in front of it, just like Kirk couldn't find his way through the brick wall when he was standing in front of it, so I always thought that the gate has simply closed automatically. But in the end they find that the gate is still there and it's still opened, so in the end of the episode they all will return to the library without any problems. So why couldn't they return through the gate immediately? But whatever, McCoy is dying from the cold and Spock is trying to find for him some warmer place. So shouldn't Spock be the one to suffer more from the cold? Since Vulcans are used to much higher temperatures, shouldn't this extreme cold be a much bigger problem for him? Or am I thinking too much about it? I don't know, I'm not the expert on temperatures and reactions of humanoid creatures to low temperatures, but they managed to bump into a furry. That sounds wrong. They bump into a person in fur. The person brings them to a warm cave where Spock puts McCoy to bed and talks to the furry. The person in fur. And it turns out to be an attractive woman. Okay, that raises a lot of questions. She explains that she has been sent there to die by a dictator called Sadiq Khan, or Shere Khan, or Khan Noonien Singh, or Zor Khan, or something like that. So she has been living there for years, and she was the only person on the whole planet. That raises even more questions. If she's the only person living in the Ice Age, why does she have perfect hair? Why does she have good makeup? Why is her normal outfit just drags, but the fur looks to be professionally made? Well, at least she starts to behave logically. I mean, she is the only person on that planet and suddenly she is visited by two men from outer space, so she has a completely natural reaction. She starts to believe that she's insane. That's a perfectly human reaction, that's so rare to see in the third season. Kirk meanwhile wakes up in a cell questioned by the prosecutor. He tries to come up with a story that he came up from an island called Earth, but the prosecutor doesn't understand what he's trying to say, but he has a great reaction as soon as Kirk mentions the library. The reaction means that he also came from the future, or it can also mean that he has diarrhea and must quickly run to his special room. He wants to release him since he understood the truth, but drunk Beverly accuses him of witchcraft, and the guard confirms that he has witnessed Kirk talking to ghosts, one of them named Bones, who responded to him. The prosecutor storms out of there, screaming he doesn't want to have anything to do with him. Meanwhile, in Ice Age, Spock is coming strangely close to Zarabeth, the fairy woman, to a huge surprise to McCoy when he wakes up. Zarabeth claimed that they can't return because the Atava Crone has modified them, and I thought that this is the explanation why they couldn't get back earlier. McCoy doesn't like that Spock simply accepts that and doesn't even try to do anything with it, and they end up with Spock attacking him. Mr. Spock is starting to behave very strangely. He's openly attracted to Zarabeth, and he's openly aggressive towards McCoy. Kirk meanwhile manages to attack the guard, and later even the prosecutor, when he comes down to visit him. The prosecutor tries to explain to Kirk that they can't go back because the Atava Crone has modified them. When he realizes that Kirk was not modified by Atos, he says that he must return back immediately because without the modifications he wouldn't survive in the past for more than a few hours. And he helps him escape back to the library. So now he suddenly can go through the wall, but he couldn't do so before. Weird, but as I said, not a major problem for me. And back in the library we see Kirk beating up a 90-year-old man 3 times. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen, well, at least it's self-defense, but come on. Mr. Atos looks he will fall apart if you touch him too hard. That scene just looks so wrong. Anyway, Kirk wins the fight with Grandpa and forces him to help him find his friends. McCoy meanwhile wants to test his theory so he goes to insult Zarabev. Spock reacts like every good logical Vulcan would. He tries to murder his friend. That's when they realize that Spock is de-evolving, because 5,000 years ago Vulcans were barbarians who were killing each other before Surak came and changed their civilization with these teachings about logic. And this is my biggest problem with this episode. Why is Spock de-evolving? Is it because they were not modified? So why is Spock the only one who is de-evolving? Why are McCoy and Kirk behaving relatively normally? And what is the modification supposed to do? Because I would assume that it's supposed to prepare them for living in the era in which they will live for the rest of their lives. So shouldn't Spock de-evolve after he was modified? I really don't understand this part. It works perfectly from a dramatic point of view, but I prefer to fully understand what's going on and mainly why is it going on. Anyway, after Zarabev tells them that only she can't go back, they return to the rocks, to which they arrive, and they hear Kirk screaming at them from the library. Spock considers staying with Zarabev because it's implied he fell in love with her, but when Atos claims that they have to return together because they went there together, Spock and Zarabev have a nice little goodbye, and Zarabev looks like she poses for a shampoo commercial. After they return to the library, Spock informs McCoy that he's back to normal and that stuff between them happened 5,000 years ago. Atos puts quickly his prepare disk to the machine and storms through the gate to follow his family, and our heroes beam back to the Enterprise, back in the last minute. And we end up with a beautiful shot of the supernova destroying the planet. This episode has it all. It has a great mystery plot, it has a great sci-fi story, it has really nice action, a tiny bit of humor, and even a love story. The plot is well polished, the pacing is great, I just love it. To me, this is an almost perfect episode. It was written by Jean Lisette Aroest, sorry for the wrong pronunciation, and it's one of the two scripts she wrote for the original series. The first one, Is There in Truth No Beauty, wasn't that good, to say it politely, but I really loved her second script. And she was a librarian when she wrote it. That's probably the reason why this takes place in the library. On my usual scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 9 out of 10. It's almost perfect, but it has a lot of tiny problems. So, just one episode to go, and we will have the whole series done. And I'm not looking forward to the next episode. I don't really remember it, but I remember the only thing I liked was Shatner's performance. Other than that, if I remember correctly, the episode sucked. But that's something for another video. What will I cover after I finish TOS? Well, let's say that this week I started to rewatch all of the versions of the first 6 Star Trek movies. But that's for the future. Right now, thank you very much for watching, and see you in a couple of days with my video about the next episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Thanks again, and bye.